All right, well, the time has arrived now where we are going to cross over now to Fourways, where Peter Ndoro is hosting our TNA, and this, of course, in conjunction with the SABC, is hosting our guest, Gwede Mantashe, the Secretary General of the ANC Alliance Secretariat, and the Cuban Five. It's fantastic that we can have them here to discuss the triumph of international solidarity. I'm not going to introduce the panel to you because we've got Peter sitting right next to them, and I leave it to you. Peter, a very, very good morning to you. We're looking forward to this wonderful breakfast you're hosting.
A very good morning to Ian, and good morning to everybody who's watching us across South Africa. And there are more than 50 countries that are watching on DSTV this special broadcast, the latest in the series of New Age business briefings, brought to you by the SABC, and today very kindly sponsored by Transnet. So, yeah, welcome. We're talking to the Cuban Five, and many of you actually might be wondering, who on earth are these people? Well, they're going to tell you their story during the course of this conversation, but essentially, in a nutshell, what happened is these guys got arrested in Florida, Miami in 1998, and they were incarcerated for more than a decade, some 15 years and even longer, and they became actually, I would guess, a symbol of the struggle that the Cubans have been having with America, particularly since 1960. And so we'll unpack all of that, the support they got over the years, but we also must remember that the support that Cuba has given Africa, particularly during the liberation struggles, will unpack that. And we'd like you to be part of that conversation and get a sense of why perhaps there's a lot of excitement in South Africa about the arrival of the Cuban Five. So let's say welcome to them, let's introduce them to you and start unpacking this story. I'm going to start right next to me with the Secretary General of the African National Congress, Mr. Gwede Mantashe. Always a pleasure to have you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Okay, and next to you now, I'm going to try and remember all your names during the course of this conversation, but buenos dias to all of you, starting with Antonio Guerrero. Thank you very much indeed. Welcome to South Africa.
Thank you.
Fernando Gonzalez, welcome, and thank you for joining us. Ramon Labanino, thank you, sir. Thank you for coming. Rene Gonzalez, thank you very much indeed. Welcome to you. And next to you, Gerardo Hernandez. Thank you, sir. Welcome to you. Right, okay, so let me start with you, Secretary General. The Cuban Five got a hero's welcome yesterday when they arrived at the airport. And some people might be wondering, why has South Africa given them a hero's welcome? What do they represent and what do they mean to us?
I'm hoping that during this breakfast show, the focus will be on getting as much information as possible from them without avoiding questions directed to us. We're welcoming them as the alliance, the ANC, the South African Communist Party, COSATU, together with the Friends of Cuba Society, which is a campaign structure that has kept the campaign on the release of the Cuban Five alive. It's important for them to be here. It's the first country they visited since their release, and I think they are returning a favor, I would imagine, because when Mandela was released, the first country he visited was Cuba. Now, what is important about them is that it's not just about the Cuban Five. I listened to all the SABC bulletins. They call them the so-called Cuban Five. They're not so-called, they're Cuban Five, they're human beings. They're here. They're here. And the arrest was a highlight and the climax of Cold War politics post the collapse of the Eastern Bloc. Because America still believed that communism posed a threat, and they arrested them for that. That's why they kept Cuba in the list of countries that sponsor terrorism. They cut diplomatic ties with Cuba many years ago. They are still blockaded as a country. Guantanamo Bay military airbase is an undesired piece of land that is occupied by America in Cuba. And their presence here is about celebrating their release in the first place. And I appreciate that. That is the power of international solidarity that the Cuban people has given to all of us. And secondly, talks to establish diplomatic relations between the U.S. and Cuba is underway, very good step. Removal of Cuba from the list of countries sponsoring terrorism is a step to the right direction, very good. But our welcoming them, we are recommitting ourselves as South Africans to continue with the struggle, one, for the lifting of the American blockade. Secondly, for the removal of Guantanamo Bay base in Cuba, so that Cuba should be a country that is normal, that is relating to everybody, that selects its friend and interacts with them without fear or favor. That's why they're here, and we're welcoming them. They will share with you a number of stories. Cuba was physical in Angola. 3 of them have been in Angola. Quito Carnival is a turning point for this region because it was the defeat and humiliation of the racist army in Quito Carnival that led to the freedom of Namibia and the beginning of negotiations in South Africa. So that is why we're welcoming them. It's a sense of pride, it's a sense of celebration.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Secretary General. All right, let's start with you, gentlemen, and perhaps maybe just start with your feelings coming to South Africa, first of all. Let me start with you, Mr. Guerrero.
It is really a great enjoyment to be here with our friend of South Africa. First, we want to express our gratitude to all South African people for their support and for this invitation. Yesterday I was talking with my brother about the first impression here once we get to the airport, and it's really amazing the love of the South African people to us was represent the love of South African people to Cuba, because that's what the fight we are. We are Cuban men, Cuban people that come here to tell our friend in South Africa that we will be together forever in all the battle, like our battle that was a long, long one, and we knew from the first day that South African people and many friends of Cuba will be with us. That's why we always have said that we never were in prison. Physically we were there, but mentally we were free. We were surrounded by love and solidarity. So from the distance we felt that, but now once we are here, we can embrace our brother, we can shake a hand, we can meet, we can see who we are, and we are the same people. This is like come to another house. South Africa, we're feeling that is our house too, our home. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Mr. Gonzalez, tell us in your own words, because we've read about it. Some of us have kind of been told about it, and some of us don't even know the story. But tell us in your own words how it is that you ended up being arrested and spending all of those years in prison in America.
Well, ever since the triumph of the revolution in 1959, there were groups in South Florida that planned and executed violent terrorist actions against Cuba. During the 90s, when the Eastern Bloc fell, certain groups in southern Florida, they thought that that was the opportunity to give the last blow to the Cuban Revolution. They thought that the revolution was crumbling, and as Eastern Bloc countries were falling, they thought that Cuba was next. And as Cuba opened up to tourism, in order to get the the money that needed. And these groups from South Florida, they targeted hotels in Cuba and tourist facilities. And they started planning bombs and sending mercenaries from Central America, recruiting people and sending them to Cuba to place bombs in hotels, airports, and all the facilities. And that made our task more urgent. Our task was in South Florida to find out who these individuals were, where they got the money, where they got the explosives and the weapons that they use, and then provide that information to Cuba in order to save lives. Mm-hmm. Lives not only of Cubans, but lives also of people from different countries that were traveling to Cuba, and people from other countries, because those groups targeted facilities, Cuban facilities throughout the world. In Central America, in Mexico, they blew up offices of Cubana airline in other countries, and that was our task, to find out who those groups were, where they train, where they get the weapons from, where they got the money from, and try to prevent those terrorist actions from happening.
Perhaps I can move to you then, Mr. Labino. You're now in prison. In fact, the trial started, and many say that you didn't really have a chance with the way that it was set up, the climate that was there at the time. Tell us about those challenges. Why was it difficult for you to get a fair trial, and you ended up being punished so severely?
Yeah, well, first of all, we want to express our gratitude, as my brother said before, on behalf of the Cuban Five, our families that are sitting down over here too, and on behalf of the Cuban people, so for this great opportunity. Well, you have to understand Miami. Miami is a different place. It's like any other place in the world. Miami is a place in which many of the Cuban extremists from the right wing, they settled down in Miami after the revolution, 1959. And the hate they have against Cuba is huge. Everything that had to be with Cuba is something that had to be a big issue in Miami. You have to remember the Elian Gonzalez case, which is an outrageous case. I mean, nobody in this world can understand how a government can separate a father from his son. Well, in Miami, that's a normal thing because of political issues. So holding our trial in Miami was extremely injustice. The environment in Miami, everything is controlled by the extremists, the same extremists we were investigating, the same extremists we were planning to set bombs in Cuba, the same extremists who have been carrying out a lot of plans, violent plans against Cuba, the same extremists who, at any time with the Cuban government and the American government trying to get closer, they always create a situation in which they try to push the American government to invade Cuba. That's the real thing. So holding the trial in Miami is impossible for us. And we filed many motions to change venue, but every motion was denied. So we understand that holding the kind of trial in Miami is so political motivated. The end is going to be a birth for us. So
this battle was more about America versus Cuba than rather trying the Cuban Five.
What happened is that they were using the five of us. We are not us, we are Cuba. I mean, with whole respect. What they see in us is Cuba, the representation of Cuba, and they want to punish Cuba through us. They want to say, well, I'm going to show you what is going to happen to you because you're Cuban, you are saving your country, but at the same time you have to pay a price for being a patriot or for being faithful to your country. And what they're trying to do is to punish Cuba for that. So we understand that from the very beginning. We will never ever fail to our country. We will never ever betray our ideas. So that's why they punish us so hard. They send us to the hole for 17 months at the very beginning. We received the harshest sentences in the system, 2 life sentences for my brother Gerardo Hernandez. That means that he had to die twice, reborn again, and then he had to do 15 more years to get out of prison.
Wow. Wow.
And similar to that is my brother here, Antonio Guerrero. The first sentence was 1 life plus 15 years. He had to die, reborn again, and deal for, in my case. I mean, it's crazy. That's the way the system is, you know.
Okay.
And when they want to punish you, they punish you hard. Because it's psychological destroying, you know. I mean, all they were trying to do is to break us, you know, in some way. So I received 1 life and 18 years. My brother, Fernando, received 19 years. That's the most sentence for him. And Rene Gonzalez received 15 years. And we were sent to the most violent prison in the system possible for every one of us. We were facing harshest time in prison with many situations, as you understand. Some of, like in Gerardo's case, he never received the visit from his wife. Rene Gonzalez never received a visit from his wife. So that's one of punishment. I think from the very beginning, from the September the 12th, 1998, till December the 17th, 2014, they were trying to break us at any moment. At any moment we can talk to the prosecutor and say, hey, that's it. I want to, that will never happen.
Okay, Mr. Gonzalez, how did you manage to stay the course? How did you manage to keep your spirit together? It must have been a very difficult journey, and not being able to see friends and family, your wives, must have been the hardest thing to do. How did you stay strong?
Well, we have a history which teaches us a lot of lessons. And I remember when we went down to the court the first time, the 5 of us met together. The first thought that we shared was that our trial would be like the trial of Fidel when he assaulted the Moncada barracks. And that same history that took us through that path is the main source of inspiration for us. I mean, the sacrifices of our people, the ideals of the revolution that we fought for, that we defended, were the initial source of inspiration. And once you make the decision of resisting, what you have to do is to find your own resources to do it. And I can't give lessons to South Africans because you have a lot of history also, and you know what resources mean when you have to resist. And then I would say that I had to thank the prosecutors because they were so mean that they inspired us also. I mean, you can't just surrender to people that behave like criminals, and that's how they behaved. I don't like to say this. I would have liked to see decent people defending the other party because, I mean, it was, after all, a legal system. But they decided to behave like criminals in order to punish us and in order to break us down. And well, then you have a decision to make. Either you break down or you resist. And if you decide to resist, you better put just face the issue and go ahead. And that's what we did. They put us in hard conditions, solitary confinement on the punishment wing of the prison. But the 5 of us, we found the means to resist inside of us. Our education was, I would say, it was a tool. The Cuban humor was a tool also. Reading a lot, exercising. So at the end, we decided that the only way of coming out winners would have been to get out better than the way we came into the prison. And that's what we did. We just took the opportunity to grow, to become better persons, to read, to learn. And here are 5 people who weren't defeated by the prosecutors, by the U.S. government. as Ramon was saying, we were very aware that for them the issue was to use us against Cuba, and we decided it's never going to happen. I mean, there was no way that they would put us in front of an audience to speak lies against our country or something like that, to accuse Cuba of wanting to do some damage to the U.S. So all of that, I believe, comes together when you have to face that odds. And that's why we resisted. I would say it came maybe as a natural thing. Once you decide that you have to resist, the rest is to use the best that you have on you and go ahead. And that's what we did.
All right, so what we're going to do, because I want to hear your story as well, we're going to take a quick commercial break so that we can get those out the way as quickly as we can, and we'll come back to you, Mr. Hernandez, because I want to understand when you started to realize that you were not alone and that there were people outside that were supporting you. I want to hear that story. All of that is coming up. And don't forget, hashtag TNA BizBrief at Morning Live SABC if you've got a question for the Cuban Five, and also Secretary General Gwede Mantashe. Stay with us.